Okay, so I would like to welcome everybody to the second webinar in our series on teaching online. My name is Sam Edelman in the Center for Teaching and Learning, and I am your host for today. Just a few housekeeping issues before we get started. So if you have any sound problems, just run an audio check and do the audio test again. If you need to leave temporarily, in the emoticon menu, there should be a little coffee cup to let us know you've left temporarily. And if you have any other technical issues, rather than trying to get me to fix them, it might be easier. You can just call Webex support and you can see the number there. By the way, if you use this with your students, that number is good for students as well. It's 866-229-3239. And then just some final guidelines. But before I do that, could I please get everybody to type into the text chat what department you're in and where you're joining us from today, like your office, home, Starbucks, perhaps, wherever you might be, if you'll do that while I go over these final guidelines. So, so if you have a question, if you'll click the hand raise icon, that will let us know you have one. You're also welcome to type any comments or questions into the chat. I will be monitoring the chat, and we'll be stopping every few minutes to take questions as well. And we are recording today's session, and we will be sending a recording link to you in the next day or two. So I'm going to very quickly and briefly introduce our speaker today, our session leader today, Florence Martin. She will tell you a little bit more about herself, but just to remind you, the name of our session today is Effective Time Management Strategies to Teach Online Without Being Up at 3 a.m. or Providing 24/7 Support. So please welcome Florence Martin.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for introducing yourselves. Let me quickly see. Okay, so we have Amanda from Kinesiology, Stephanie from ELTI, Jim from IPS, Kelly from the library, and I have two colleagues here in the room. I know Chuang in Shant. Okay, and which department are you from? Social work. So I have two colleagues here in the room. I'm teaching from, I'm going to be doing this webinar from CTL. So Sam is right in front of me too. Okay, so while we're putting together the series on teaching online this year, you know, we did this last year with 4 topics. And again, we wanted to revisit this year. And we were thinking through what are the important topics. And so we did the 10 best practices, and this came next. You know, especially for those of you who teach online, you know the time commitment involved, especially when you do it the first or the second time. It is a lot of work. There is a lot of echo, Sam. I don't know, do you hear it? Somebody's microphone? Or, okay, that's better. Okay, great. No, that's perfect. Okay, so effective time management strategies came up for discussion, and we all, discussed, and we said, so this is a very important topic for us to talk about. So we're doing this as a second one in the Teaching Online webinar series. I brought about 10 different strategies that I'm going to share with you. A little bit about me. If you have already, attended a webinar, you've probably seen the slide before. My name is Florence Martin. I'm an associate professor and program director in the Instructional Systems Technology program. There's my email if you need to follow up with me after the webinar. I do research in the area of online learning environments. I've done studies on e-learning, synchronous online learning, mobile learning, and I've looked into learning analytics. I teach 100% online. The program I teach in is 100% online, asynchronously online. So I also enjoy doing research on, the online learning aspect of it. One of the courses I teach is the IST 6150, which is Design, Development, and Evaluation of Online Learning Systems, where I teach people how to design an online course. And then I also teach instructional multimedia development, where we focus on using e-learning authoring tools, to design interactive e-learning material for your courses. And I also teach an instructional design course. Just a few of the courses that I teach. I always have to advertise the program I'm part of. So I'm with the Instructional Systems Technology Program. We have an MEd and a graduate certificate in Instructional Systems Technology, 36 hours and 18 hours. We have 3 concentrations. We have a school specialist concentration for those who are interested in being a tech facilitator in K-12, or training and development who want to go to the industry. And thirdly, we have the online learning and teaching concentration. So if you want to learn how to teach online, design online learning, or manage online learning programs, that concentration would be applicable. Even if you're not interested, if you know somebody who might be interested, please send them our way. So there's the direct link to the online learning and teaching concentration, which has 6 courses, and Sam will share the slides with you too in the end. It will be, along with the recording. I think it will be linked there if you want it later. You can also find us by, just going to the Educational Leadership Department. So before I start talking about strategies, I want to get a little bit of an understanding of where each of you are. So I'm assuming you're either teaching online, or you're interested in teaching online, or you teach blended. So if this topic is of interest to you, I'm assuming you fall into one of those 3 categories. So if you are teaching online, I would like to know about how many hours per week do you spend in one online course. Thank you. I was going to say type it in the chat window because I didn't create a poll. So just type it in the chat window. Okay. So I see some C, some D, some B. Okay. E. Okay. So Kelly and Amanda, that's a lot of time for one online course. Okay, completely online. Okay, so we're talking about one course. Okay, depending, and again, you might have different workloads, right? So you might your workload might be teaching 2 courses per semester, 3 courses per semester. Yeah, 1 course. So, okay. Depending on, if you're teaching the same, multiple sections of the same course, then the way you handle it might be different. Okay. I would say, and we'll revisit this at the very end of the webinar today, but I actually looked up some reading too on this, what other researchers have found, and they're kind of averaging 10 hours per course. So, between B and C is kind of like a good place to be at. So if you're in other categories, either you might be spending too less or too much more. But also, it varies if you're teaching a course for the first time. Because when you're teaching it for the first time, it probably doesn't even fall in this category because you're creating everything, right? You're creating all your videos, you're designing the course. So with online teaching, the second time you create it or you facilitate it, it's going to be a lot more easier, the second, the third implementation. It's the first implementation that takes up a lot of time. Okay, so just to give you, hopefully, this activity gave you a little bit of, time to reflect to see how much time you think you might be spending. So one more question before we look at strategies. So I want to know, what are your workload concerns with teaching online? Where do you think you're spending most of your time when you're teaching an online course? And if you can type it in the chat window. Are you spending your time, okay, synchronous session preparation, grading, Carolyn's is grading, feedback for students, discussion board. Okay, it's interesting how each of you have different, things that you're specifying, and those are all, time-consuming tasks. Assignment feedback, okay, papers especially, okay. And you're all most of you from different content areas too. So for every content area, it might be different. And also if you teach at the undergraduate level, it might be different compared to teaching a grad level. So there's a lot of, variations. One more question before we move on. I don't have a slide on this, but I would like to know what your class sizes are. typical class sizes. I teach in a graduate program in education, and our classes are capped at 25. So, a lot of the things that I'm going to share, might apply for that range, but then I know some of you teach large size classes too. Okay, 10 to 25, 20, 40. Okay, 80. Okay, Amanda has the most. Okay. Do you have a TA, Amanda? You can just type in the chat window. Okay, no. Okay, so based on some of the responses you gave me, right? You said synchronous session preparation, grading, feedback with students, discussion board. So these are the three big time-consuming tasks, I would say. One is, when you're teaching online, you have to be present, right? You cannot just put all your material online and disappear. You are still the instructor for the course. So establishing instructor presence takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of ways how you could do it, and I think we have another session scheduled maybe in spring focusing on that, on presence. So that takes a lot of time. Individualized timely feedback, we heard that come up. Definitely, grading, especially if you have a lot of students, giving individual feedback takes time. In a face-to-face setting, sometimes you are able to give some feedback quickly and easily during the session, whereas in an online class, they are relying on, everything is on through assignments or through email, so it's going to take a lot more time to do that. And the third one is creating video-based content and interactions. So creating the instructor-generated material takes a lot of time too. So this is like, this is based on research. I didn't come up with this list. And creating those interactive opportunities take time too. So here is what we are going to look at today. For the next maybe 30, 40 minutes or so, I've structured this into 10 different strategies. And, I thought about what are some of the things I do. I did some readings. Actually, there is a book on time management. I think it's called Workload Management Strategies for Online Teaching. So there's quite a bit of resources out there too in this area. But this is a quick 10 items that I put together, and we'll talk about it. And I'll pause at the end of each strategy to take questions. And if you want to, share any of the strategies that you use, we are here to learn from each other. So I don't want this to be a one-way session. I want it to be interactive, so I'd love to hear from you. And even if you want to pick up the mic and talk, we welcome that. So the first two ones you probably already know, it's not a big deal. But I wanted to stress on this. Course organization. So keeping your course design simple and consistent. And why do I recommend that? Because if you do that, it avoids student questions and confusion, and you're going to get less questions, which means you're going to save time. So that's the starting point. Keep your course design simple, consistent, and clear so that your students are not lost. They stay in the course, and you're spending less time trying to help them, find the instructional material. I'm going to give you a couple of screenshots. So this used to be my Moodle page. So I just wanted to show you some of the key elements that, is important to include in each module or each unit, however you design it. So, of course, you want to start with objectives, right? Measurable objectives. And then you give a variety of readings and resources. It could be a textbook. It could be web resources, whatever you do. I call instructor-generated material as an e-lesson. I record it each week, so that's up there. And then I do asynchronous discussions. Since it's 100% asynchronous, I make sure that there is a discussion each week so that I can hold my students accountable for the reading that they do. Then there's an assignment, and I also make them do a reflect. And what I do is, so I hold on to these 6 main elements for each week, so they know exactly this is how the course is going to, flow through every unit. So keeping the course design simple and consistent is very, very important. This was a navigation menu I had created in Moodle. I would even, highlight them to which week we were in to keep it even simpler. This was created using a HTML block. Anyway, we're not in Moodle anymore, otherwise, I would tell you how to do it. We're moving to Canvas, but, or we are already on Canvas. Some of you might be moving to Canvas. But anything that you can do to make it simple and consistent, make the navigation easy, will save time for you down the line because you're going to get less questions from students. So this is a module that I put together in Canvas. So these are like my headings. So, I have objectives and tasks, I have readings and resources, I have an e-lesson, and then I have the discussion, and then blog URL is my assignment, and then I have a reflection. So pretty much the 6 things that you see, and you might be doing different things, and that's okay. But keep the flow in the same order, if possible. Like label them in the same way, and that helps. So consistent modules. Okay, I see a question from Amanda. Amanda, I do a module per week. I know faculty who run a module across 2 to 3 weeks, but I would say the lesson that I've learned and I believe in is if you do 1 per week, but chunk it into smaller chunks of information, students will get into it. If you spread a module across several weeks, students still wait until the last week to get to it. So that's the reason I do it this way. So there is always an assignment, an activity. Assignments sometimes may not be there for each week, but there is like a discussion, some kind of a formative assessment at least each week. So which brings us to about 15 modules per semester. I combine during Thanksgiving, that week I usually combine Thanksgiving and December, the first week I combine that module. We lose 1 week during spring break. So about 15 I want to say. Sam, did you want to add anything?
There was another question. So are your discussions synchronous or asynchronous?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that. Okay, so I mostly do asynchronous discussion each week, but what I'm beginning to do now is maybe once a month host a synchronous session, and I call it as a Q&A. I think I should call it as a happy hour, but I call it as a Q&A. But I make it optional. So, I don't mandate it because, I don't advertise it on banners, so I can't expect students to show up. I sometimes do a doodle poll to see what evening works for them the best. So I schedule it on that day and then I record it. That's the main thing. Even if a few students show up and the key questions are asked, if they're working on a project that provides support, and then it's recorded and I email it to the whole class. So I want to say at least like 3 synchronous sessions. I did one in September. I'm going to do one in October, one in November. And the last one, usually if there are student presentations, then I schedule a synchronous session so that everybody can see it synchronously. Did I answer your question? Okay. I don't know who it was from. So that was about course organization, keeping it simple, consistent, keeping your navigation simple so that you have to answer less questions. The second way for you to save time is course orientation. A lot of times, this is the last thing we come to and we don't put enough time into it. So as a result of which, there's a lot of unanswered questions which you end up answering later. So what I do is I actually didn't bring a screenshot of my Getting Started module. When students are back, when the semester starts, I give them a week to go through the Getting Started module or orienting them to the course. Because, if they are face-to-face, you are talking about all of that on your first day when you're back. At least half the class period, you go over all the instructions, ground rules about the class. So getting them oriented to the course is very important. And when you spend enough of time, a lot of questions can be avoided later. I do Camtasia recordings. So what I do is half of the recording is I have a PowerPoint slide that I walk them through what this course is about, the goals, the objectives, what are the major projects, when are discussions due, anything you want to tell them about the course. So I spend like at least 5-6 minutes talking about that. And the last few minutes, actually if you pull up the YouTube video, you'll see, then I do a demonstration, a screencast of I walk them through the course shell, where they can find what. Because sometimes those are the questions you get from your students, right? I can't find this. How do I submit an assignment? How do I create a discussion thread? So I walk them through some of the basic, elements of how to use Canvas and, where they can find information in the course. But, I don't have time to walk them through every single technical detail. So I do give, the link to the Canvas tutorials, hoping that they will take the time to go watch it. But, doing a 10 to 12 minute long orientation definitely helps. So how do you know that they've taken the time to watch this? That's the challenge, right? We don't know whether they watched it. So I give them a getting started quiz right after that. So in the quiz, I ask questions that I covered in the orientation, and I also ask questions from the syllabus, because a lot of times they don't even read or pay attention to it. So it is graded. So, they have to go through those things. And I have several other links in Getting Started module too, like the readiness survey. I give them a variety of resources on campus, like, where to get support. So having all that information ahead of time does help. So I would definitely recommend doing an orientation followed by a Getting Started quiz. Simple, and I'll talk about how to contact your instructor. So that's the first question I have in there. And some of the things to include in your syllabus, so most of us reuse our syllabus from face-to-face class, but then, it's important to capture some of the items that are very specific to online teaching, like response times. Students will submit assignments and they want you to give feedback right away, or they will email you thinking, you're going to respond to them within the next 10 minutes. So, telling them, giving them a time frame by when you will grade their work or by when you will respond to emails. So I say 48 hours. Initially, I used to say 24. Then I said I need to buy myself some time. So I do 48 now. And actually, somebody asked, I don't know where it was. I think it was the last webinar or one of the webinars I did. So does the 48 hours include weekends too? Do you respond to emails on weekends? So I said I probably had to add some language to the syllabus now. So I monitor emails over the weekend, but I don't respond unless it's a priority, unless something, they're going to really miss out on something. So things like this, having it under the orientation and in the syllabus really helps. Having a nice interactive syllabus. Make your syllabus interactive, visually appealing, so that students are interested in looking at it and going through it, so that it's not boring. A lot of time, half of our syllabus is filled with policies, right? So making information stand out is very, very important. Yes, Amanda is right. Amanda, they can take multiple attempts. Yes, it is not timed. It's only 10 questions. It's not timed. So to me, what is more important is they know the answer, the right answer. And even if they do it open book, it doesn't matter to me as long as they find the answer. So I don't time it, and they can do multiple times too. So does it help? Okay. Yeah, and I ask simple questions. One of the questions I ask all the time is about when is your main discussion post due? Because they'll tell you they didn't remember it, even though you repeat it over and over again. How many phases of the project phases in this particular course. So simple things that you want them to definitely stand out. So we looked at course organization and we looked at course orientation. Before we move to record and reuse, let's see if there are any other questions. You could either type it in the chat window or you could raise your hand and they can give you control of the mic. Also, I would love to hear strategies that you use. Anything that you guys do differently for course organization and orientation? Do you all agree that those are important things for us to pay attention to that will help you with time management? Okay, you have a hand raised. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
I wanted to find out of that orientation quiz, what percentage weight does that carry in the total grade?
Great question, Jim. Can you mute yourself again quickly so that I don't get the echo? Okay. So, you know, I don't weight my items. I just do points. So I give points accordingly. It's, I think, 10 points. So each discussion, like, you know, I have 15 discussions. So each discussion is also at 10 points. So can you see the comparison? So it's 10 points. And so my projects are usually, each project is like usually at 100 points. So does that give you a sense of where it stands?
Yes. What's the general ballpark for the total points someone might get if they got an A in the course?
So if it is A is 90% and above, right? So if it is about 500 points, the total is, then you know it's 450 and above.
Okay, so the 500 would be in effect a perfect score.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, anything else under course orientation or course organization? You have a question? Yeah. Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm going to repeat the question. Chuang has a question. So since you allow students to take it multiple times, how do you avoid them from guessing the answer? You know, I just trust them because this is a graduate course, so hoping that they are serious about it. And you know, and I don't think they spend too many times. I've seen students take it second time, but not more than that. And sometimes, you know, I see like 8s or 9s, and that's okay. They don't go back and redo if they missed one or two things. Does that help? Yeah, I'm not like really stopping them from guesswork. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, so the next thing is record and reuse. How many of you record your lectures? Give me a check mark if you record, the green check mark below. Let me see it. Okay. So if you record lectures for your class, I know some of you reuse, like go find open source material, but some of you do your own lectures or e-lessons. Okay, I see a couple. So recording these lectures take a lot of time. You know, so you have to create your slides. I mean, you might already have some slides that you use for your face-to-face class, but then when you teach online, you're really cutting it down, right? These are not 1 hour lectures. I do like 10-minute mark, and that's where the research says. You know, research says 10 to 15 minutes max. So if you're talking for an hour, your students are not going to listen to you. So doing that, you know, recording and then publishing it, again, I use Camtasia, and I publish it to, I publish it to YouTube. I do the unlisted option on YouTube, and then I kind of link it in Canvas. You could use the tools within Canvas too. It's just that I chose to do that because it was easy for me to close caption my videos. So once I record it, I'm not going to be recording this each year I'm teaching this course. I definitely will reuse it at least for a couple of years, provided, you know, the content has not changed drastically. So one thing for you to keep in mind when you're recording videos, and sometimes, you know, we miss it, it's simple things, is like we start talking about specifics about the course, about assignments or dates or, you know, projects. Then when you start talking about specifics about that semester, then it's hard to reuse those lectures unless you go and edit it. So just being conscious not to do that, but focusing on the content is very, very important. And when you do that, you can reuse the lectures. As long as, you know, the videos are not totally outdated. So that's one way to save on time. And I would say also choose the right tool to record. It's very important because sometimes we spend a lot of time on the technology trying to get this video up, and we're spending time on it. There's a variety of tools out there. you know, I said I use Camtasia. We have Camtasia licenses in the College of Education, I figured out how to use it and I publish it to YouTube. But there are other free ones too. Jing is good, Screencast-O-Matic is good, there used to be one called Cam Studio that I used to use. You know, some of the free ones, the only disadvantage is you cannot go back and edit it. Okay, if you want to later go back and edit your lectures. Whereas in Camtasia, you can edit your lectures later. Like if you want to cut out portions of it, you could do it. So finding the right tool to record is very, very important. And I think in Canvas, there's a lot of like, you know, recording functionality now. I would encourage you to try that. So even if you're doing, like, you know, if you're sending out announcements or even for grading, you can do like short recordings. And instead of putting text messages, so if you want to have that instructor presence and personal connection with your students, you could just use that. So those are some things that definitely save you time because you're recording it and it's right there and you can attach it. It's not, you're not bringing it back outside, you know, outside of Canvas and then trying to figure out how to upload or how to find the link and then how to send it to your students. So recording and reusing was item number 3. And let's talk about the OER too before we take questions. Open educational resources. How many of you use open educational resources in your course? I mean, you know, these are free resources that you find right from YouTube videos to like other, you know, resources that exist out there. So if you have not, I would definitely encourage you. There's a lot of sites, you know, a lot of grant-funded projects that have been like, you know, that have created a lot of these resources too. So OER Commons is one, you know, I'd highly recommend. You could go search by subject and see if there's anything, you know, that's applicable to you. This page, the EduTech Wiki, actually had a lot of, what they did was they have a lot of different sites that has reusable learning objects. So RLOs or reusable learning objects used to be a very popular term once upon a time, not as much. You know, this is like people have created these learning objects which you can take and include it in your courses. So this site that is there is from Connexionis, and that was a grant-funded project too. They have a lot of resources that you can check out. But that EduTech Wiki site, if you go, there is a lot of different links over there that you can use. So I definitely, you know, recommend checking OER and reusable learning objects. Before we move on to the next category, let's see if there's any questions on OER, open educational resources, or recording and reusing. Okay. Thank you for letting us know, Stephanie. Okay, great. Thank you, Sam. Sam just shared Canvas Commons, which is another great resource. You know, faculty who are willing to share their courses can upload a full course into Commons. So, and you can import specific portions of it too, right? Whatever aspects you want, that is great. And then Sam also shared earlier about the screen and webcam recording using the My Media tool, also known as Kaltura Video Management. Okay, so those are 2 things from Sam if you didn't catch it early on. Any other open educational resources that you use? Again, you know, maybe depending upon your content area, there might be, you know, different sites that you go to as well. So, I mean, it's not a bad idea to rely on these materials as long as you know that, you know, they're credible enough and they're just not some random YouTube video. I personally, I mean, I use a lot of web resources too, but I always like to supplement it with my, you know, resource, my instructor-generated material. And students have told me that it always makes a difference when they listen to me. Because first, they know that you are their instructor, they see you and they hear you every week, and just not, you know, external resources. So I think a balance of both is really good if you're able to do it. Okay, great. Since we didn't see any questions, let's move on to strategy 5, which is responding to student questions. So we know that we get a lot of questions from our students. So how do we manage our time or be more efficient in responding to student questions? So the first thing I do is I create a forum called Contact the Instructor Forum. So in Contact the Instructor Forum, so I tell them if you have a general question about the course, don't email me, but post it here. Okay? So if you post it there, everybody can see your question, so that then I'm not like responding to 20 different emails with the same question, but one question gets posted and then I respond and everybody sees it. So that's the first thing I would recommend. If you have not been doing it, I mean, I title it Contact the Instructor Forum. You can call it as, whatever works for you, but the idea is general questions are posted and then you respond to it. But you have to really clarify saying, don't post personal or questions specific in nature here, specific to you. This has to be a general question that everybody can benefit from. Also, Q&A, you could create an FAQ in the end. If you've taught the course a couple of times, and if you think there's similar question that keeps coming up every time, so create an FAQ, and then later if the same question comes, you can even direct the students there. Or you can have the students look through it too, or you could send the students there, frequently ask questions. If it is if it is a question about how to do something, like how to submit an assignment, so instead of typing it, explaining text-based, doing a screencast is always helpful quickly, so that, then you're not spending time giving them text-based directions. So screencasts are helpful certain times. Then the last one is if the question is already answered, if it's already there in the Contact the Instructor Forum or if it's somewhere else, send them to the question rather than typing in the response again. So just a few ways, how you can handle questions. And here is what I do. I tell them, this is a slide out of my course orientation. So I tell them, how do they contact me? So the first way they contact me is through the Contact the Instructor Forum, if it's general. The second is if it's something specific to them or personal in nature, they email me. And if they think that doesn't work, they need to talk to me, they can call me. And then finally, they can contact me in person. So this is what I list. I should actually list Webex in there now. I'm beginning to do Webex, and I'll show you the link to Webex. I've been really advocating for the Webex meeting room. I'm really glad each of us have a link that never changes. And if you look in my email signature, I call it as my virtual office. So, if they want to do a quick meeting, office hours, they can just log in and, we can chat about it too. So that's another thing that I've been doing. So this is the Contact the Instructor Forum that I do. And so here is the instructions I tell them. I tell them, please use this forum to post questions to your instructor about the course, including assignments, due dates, and procedures, so that all class members may benefit from the instructor's response. If your question is of personal in nature, please email your instructor directly. And usually, that instruction has worked so far. Once in a while, I see something that may not apply to everybody, and then I'll respond and say that I'm going to email you the response. So, but for most of the time that it has worked. I send out periodic announcements, and that helps too. Every week, I pick a date and I stay with it. So I run my course from Monday through Sunday because mine are adult learners and they need the weekend. That's when I found that they do most of the work. So I run my courses Monday through Sunday. So every Monday they get an announcement email from me. Or they get a copy of it in their email as well as in Canvas. So just that communication, clarifying what to expect that week helps. So there's not too much of ambiguity. They know that you are there. And this is the one I mentioned, Webex, actually it's Webex for office hours. The personal meeting room, so your URL will be, if you want to directly log in, Sam gave us the link, webex.uncc.edu, or you could do it that way, or if you want to go directly, uncc.webex.com/meet/your username. So in my case, it's fmartin3, and then that will take you directly in. You can just log in, and it's so easy to log in. I mean, compared to Saba meeting, this is so much more easier to connect. Not a lot of plugins to install. So I recommend using this not only with students, but even like for other meetings and things like that. It's always been helpful. So that is about responding to student email questions. I gave you a few strategies that I use. And then let's look at facilitating discussions too, and then maybe we'll see if anybody has questions. So, I think most of you do asynchronous discussion. Some of you do more synchronous than asynchronous. So this is more focusing on asynchronous, the strategy I use. I have students sign up to facilitate discussions. The introduction discussion I facilitated because I read every single, I make them do Animoto or VoiceThread for introduction. I watch everything and I respond to everybody. But when it gets the content, I make them sign up using a doodle poll. I have not found a polling, like, a choice feature where they can sign up in Canvas yet, like the one we had in Moodle. So I just create a doodle link, and then I give them, here are your responsibility as a discussion moderator. These are the different things that you do. So I say you don't have to respond to everybody. Pick a few, combined responses. Keep the discussion going. That's more important. And one of the things I make them do is they have to summarize the discussion. So, if a student has not gone through all the postings, so reading a summary will give them a good understanding of what was discussed. And I give points for it, 10 points. So, where it stands. So it's equivalent to one discussion. So for facilitation, I don't call it as optional. I say you have to do at least one, and it's worth 10 points. And they all do it. They all sign up for it, and that definitely saves a lot of time. So I don't feel I have to be like 5 days a week. I would still say 1 or 2 days the presence is still needed, and then you're still grading it, right? So you're still going back when you're grading it, and grading discussions is a lot more easier on Canvas than it was on Moodle. So when you pull the gradebook, you see the main post, and you see all the responses in the same screen in SpeedGrader. So you know exactly how many posts that they have responded to, and so that definitely helps too. So having facilitators to moderate discussions saves time. Because, I have 15 discussions. I don't have the time to facilitate all 15 of them. Creating groups helps. You don't want to have 30 people in a single group, especially, in Canvas, how all the discussions are in one page. Go ahead. Great question. I'll tell you the strategy I use. And I always get asked that. So what I do is let me repeat the question. The question was, if you have more students than the number of discussions, like 20, when you have only 15 forums, what do the rest 5 students do? So when I create the doodle poll initially, I set it up such that only 1 student sign up for poll per discussion. Once all 15 have signed up, then I change it to 2. So now I let a second person sign up, and then they'll just team facilitate it. So that, then you don't miss on any one discussion, so you make sure that you have a facilitator for each discussion, but then some discussions you have 2 of them doing it. So it's just even more richer. Okay? So creating groups, so the strategy I've used it is like 10 students is perfect for a group, given that in Canvas, all the discussion is on one page. So if it's more than 10, then, move them into their own group. Then when you do that, you want to have a facilitator per group, which is very, very important. And that has definitely helped. Establishing subject line for posts. Creating, you can tell students to be creative, come up with a captivating subject. So this is like, it's not quite time, like, you could have them put their name in there if that would help you, like with, ease of grading. But, establishing some kind of guideline, subject line, that will definitely help you. So we talked about effectively responding to student questions and with discussions. I really didn't get into synchronous. Synchronous is it's like you are there for the whole hour. So I'm not sure how exactly I can relate time management to it, but there's a lot of functionality you can use. You could use breakout rooms, things like that. But anything else that you use with discussions and also with discussion what was the other one? And answering student questions. Do you guys use any strategies that I did not include? And there's not a lot of research studies done in this area. So definitely, we need to see what other faculty think. Okay, great. Amanda? Okay, go ahead. Was it Jim? Yeah, go ahead, Jim. Not Jim? Okay. Or was it his hand raised from last time? Okay, let's see. Amanda says we have group presentations using Google Doc throughout the semester, and they present at the end of the semester on synchronous sessions. Great recommendation. Yes, group work definitely saves time, and I do quite a bit of group work too. I did bring in slides on that. It cuts down on your grading time, right? And it makes the project richer too if they can figure out a way to work with each other, which may not always be the case. Sometimes you have to step in and resolve conflicts, especially when they're online, them trying to meet and work synchronously or asynchronously, but Google Docs definitely helps. Yeah, there's a lot of technology these days, Web 2.0 tools, and I was told that students have a Webex meeting room too, so they could get in and just log in and have a chat anytime they want. They can Skype with each other. So there's a lot of technology these days that they can use to collaborate. Yeah, anytime when you do group projects, it saves you on your grading time, and I'm all for it. Okay, so getting into grading, and it came up at the very beginning that grading is one the faculty spend a lot of time, and as much as I love to teach, I wish I could say I love to grade as well. So my goal is, so that grading does not pile up, and I run my modules per week, as I told you. So what I try to do is, I try to grade the next week before the next set of assignments come in, because otherwise you're going to get overwhelmed. If you skip a week in between, then you're going to have double grading the week after. So that's a strategy I use, even though it's hard, I follow that policy. And when it's assignments and projects too, I try to do the 7-day format, but at least, my recommendation would be grade it however you set your course. Units or modules or topics, grade it before the next set of assignments come in. That's a good formula to have, because then you're not going to get overwhelmed and trying to grade too many at the same time. But especially if assignments build on each other, you want to give feedback quicker. Because if you don't give feedback, then, they're not going to benefit from it, and then, the next assignment quality may not be the one that you want. So setting the grading schedule and including that in your syllabus is important. Having rubrics. For those of you who are familiar with Quality Matters is all about creating rubrics. And, and it makes a difference. It takes a little effort to create them. And these are not even like different levels of rubrics. These are just criteria I have. For some courses, I have different levels of, levels in a rubric format. When you create that and when you share it with students know exactly what the expectations are. It's two-way. They know what the expectations are, and then they also, for you to grade, it's helpful, and they know where you're taking points off. So we are all on the same page. A lot of questions are about grading usually. Especially grad students, you take 1 point away, they still come and ask you why you took that 1 point away. So, having a clear rubric about the expectations and then using the same thing to grade and provide feedback is always helpful. So, and I actually have a grading policy and rubrics page, even right in my week 0, which is in my Getting Started module. So they see all the rubrics that are being used for the rest of the semester, including discussion rubrics, reflection rubrics. So having all of that ahead of time is important. Use technology for feedback and grading. You know, I have work to do in this area. I usually do use snippet and take screenshots of images when I grade technology related projects. But there's a lot of tools these days. You could do audio only recordings. You can do explain everything. There's Camtasia Relay if you have access to it, or you could annotate. But you could also use the functionality within Canvas. Canvas has all those audio, video functionality too that you can use and quickly record yourself and send feedback. So make use of it. With the new LMSs in place, I think, the technology has gotten definitely better. Work smarter, not harder at grading. So especially if you see the same comments that you have to repeat to students, keep a list. Compile a list together. Even though students don't like canned responses, but if it is about formatting, something specific, you could just copy paste those comments. You don't want to keep typing them over and over again. So those help. So keep the comments from the previous ones, compile a list together so that you can reuse it. Peer feedback. So that is very helpful too. Group activities, have them provide peer feedback to each other before it comes to you. So you are, then they are already receiving one round of feedback, and they have a chance to revise the assignment before it comes to you, which means you're going to save time on the amount of feedback that you have to give your students. High enrollment courses, you might need a fewer personalized grading assignments. Like Amanda teaching 80 students, it might be hard to do read 80 reflections each week and, personally respond to each one of them. So you might need a little bit more automated assignments, more quizzes, or the peer feedback strategy. So you'll have to think about that. So giving feedback is challenging, time consuming, but at the same time, you also should collect feedback. Because, you want to know periodically from them so that you can save time on some of the things that you are doing. So ask them about how the course can be improved. I'm glad universities are doing the mid-semester evaluations. I don't know how your response rates were, but I think it's really good that we're doing it now. I always used to do a mid-semester, and then I do a separate end of semester too. So collect any feedback that you can. I do a short survey or a specific item very early on in the semester about the design of the course, if everything is working out. So collecting feedback from the students and hearing from them will save time, responding to them on certain things. So that was on grading. Using the automated LMS features. So now that we are on Canvas, if you're traveling, you want to still send out announcements, you can schedule these. You could create them when you have time, and you could just delay it, and you could put it on, set the time when you want to do it. So maybe you just have 1 day a week, and then you want to just put all these announcements together, you could sit and do it. So that's one I definitely would recommend. Using rubrics within Canvas is very helpful. It takes a little bit of work to create it. But once you create it, you can just reuse it over and over again, and that's a lot helpful. So check out the rubric functionality. Do you see the rubric option down here? So that is every time you have an assignment, you can create a rubric option. So that is helpful. So those are just a couple of Canvas functionality, and we are all still new to Canvas, so I'm sure there are other functionality too. Sam is sharing Speed Grader, which is good. So Speed Grader does is you don't even have to download the assignments to your computer. You can annotate it directly without downloading, and then students can see it directly from there, and that definitely saves time. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. I know several faculty like Speed Grader. And you can go to Speed Grader from your gradebook. And keeping notes So I teach, each of the courses I teach, I don't teach every semester, it's usually once a year. So by the time I teach it the next time, I've forgotten what happened in the last time I taught it. So keeping notes, is very important. Little things you can fix it on the go, but then major things, if you want to change, I would keep notes. What I do is I have a notepad. So I have a folder per course, per semester. And I write notes to myself every time I get emails about something not clear or questions, even in the contact instructor forum. That's one thing I go revisit. And then before I teach it, I go through this list, making sure I captured it, because you don't want to see the same questions come up the next time you're implementing it. So keep notes so that you can constantly improve. And I go through the contact instructor forum questions too, because these are questions general in nature, and you want to make sure that you've addressed it with the, in the design or, instruction to the students, so that the same question doesn't come the next time. So keeping notes and continually improving is very important. Have other faculty look at it and provide feedback too, to see, sometimes any ambiguity, you can catch it, anything that's not clear. Sometimes when you just look at it, you may not catch it. So then, somebody else has questions, you can address it, and then you will not have those questions come up again. The last one is blocking out time, and this is a big challenge for all of us. So here is the strategy I use. So I teach 2 courses per semester, at least right now. That's my load. So I consider myself to be 40% teaching, 40% research, and 20% service. So according to my calculation, it's 2 days of teaching, 2 days of research, and 1 day of service. Do I follow it perfectly? No. But technically, I should be doing at least 16 hours for teaching, 16 hours for research, and 8 hours for service. So, when I ask you about how much time you're spending for teaching, so if you're spending about 16, 20 hours, I think that's ideal. So this is given a 5-day work week. Hoping we all are not working into weekends. So if you're working over the weekend, hopefully you're taking a break during the week. So that's the strategy that I use. And I tell myself, so, grading happens on Friday, and then, all course design, announcement emails, everything happens on Monday. So blocking out the chunk of time when you can spend on your online course is important. Sometimes online course can take a backseat when there are other things that, take priority. Or sometimes you're spending way too much time on your online course because, there's always something to do. So my philosophy and something I want to leave with you is work smarter, not harder. So being efficient, finding these techniques that definitely will save time. Again, a lot of these resources were like from practical, application things that I've done. I looked at other readings. There's not a lot of research studies done in this area to what other faculty use and what has worked for them. So there is an area for research in this area. But, that was a quick look at 10 strategies, and I hope you walk away, at least 1 or 2 of them today, and you're able to take it and implement it in your course. Carolyn has a comment. Student lingo videos on our website. There are some great videos to put in your course. Okay. Topics include 10 tips success in an online course and time management strategies. Okay. Thank you, Carolyn. Carolyn says this videos. Carolyn, is this for students or for faculty? So it is for students that faculty can put in the course? Okay, it is for students, totally. Yeah, that definitely will benefit the students too. So I'm going to just skip over. We're already running out of time, so I'm going to give the control back to Sam. If you have questions, email me, or you can email Sam, and Sam will share the link to the recording, and you'll also get a copy of the slides. So this is the last Teaching Online webinar we're doing this semester, but we're going to do 2 more in spring, so be on the lookout. And if there is a topic that you're interested in, definitely let us know. And, if we do more next year, we'll definitely keep that in mind. Okay?
So thank you, Florence. Let's give Florence some applause there from your emoticons, please. And before we wrap up, just a couple of things here. We're in the middle of the afternoon, so I invite each of you to have a virtual dessert while we're wrapping up. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I invite you all to have a virtual dessert while we wrap up. Just to let you know, we do have some upcoming webinars. No more in this series, as Florence mentioned, but we do have one tomorrow. We're starting a new series showcasing portfolios here at UNC Charlotte. And tomorrow, 2 faculty from Public Health Sciences will deliver a webinar about that. And then in November, we have the first webinar in our series on learning how to lead web conferencing sessions better, taught by Bobby Hobgood, the director of the Language Resource Center. And you can see that topic is engaging participants in a web conference. And then we have our regular monthly CTL webinar. In November, 2 faculty members will be presenting on their favorite Canvas tools. So please make note of those, and you can, if you're interested, register for them on our workshop website. So again, thank you for attending, and we will be posting Florence's slide presentation and a link to the recording video. So thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you at future webinars.